everybody. My name is Adam Felsen from Colton Commercial and Partners, and I help companies with their office space build-outs. Today we're going to talk about Title 24, which was recently updated and became enforced on July 1st, 2014. And even though it's only been enacted for a good 6 months, everybody in the building industry seems to be very confused with all the details about how it works. And so today I brought a team of expert panelists to help us out with some key questions. James Jenkins is from GCI General Contractors. We have Paul Mitchell from Capital Electric, and we have Ross Ferris from Glumac Engineering. So we'll start with Ross. Ross, can you tell us what Title 24 is, and more importantly, what has changed since the last iteration?
Yeah, Adam, I'd be happy to. So Title 24, Part 6 in particular is what we're talking about, and that's the building energy efficiency standards for residential and non-residential projects. So it's basically California's way of setting the minimum energy efficiency for California construction projects. That's been enforced since the mid-'70s. What's changed now is this last iteration of the code is much more stringent than the past. It's roughly 25% more efficient than the previous iteration of the code, and that's done through two ways. One is through straight efficiency increases in the pieces of equipment that we're installing in our buildings, but the second is through added layers of controls. Through those added layers of controls brings on extra intricacies with design as well as the construction of the project. With those, it kind of shook the industry a little bit, and people weren't quite as ready for some of the consequences of that.
Okay, so Paul, when is the Title 24 code triggered? Do we have to deal with all this on every construction project?
Anytime you add power or lighting to a space, you increase the power density of that space. The new Title 24 requirements come into effect. Also, whenever you change the physical area of a space, moving walls, that creates a new space. Those new spaces fall under the new Title 24.
So James, could you tell us about how the cost and schedule implications have been so far in the last 6 months that we've seen?
Yes. So we've seen some increases in electrical costs on all of our projects that are meeting the new standards. Typically the costs are increasing by 20 to 30%. But what makes up those cost increases are a combination of the additional cost of the lighting packages, the LED lighting, additional lighting controls, additional engineering time to engineer the systems. There's also a new requirement for commissioning, which requires additional labor to commission the systems. As far as schedule, I'm seeing impacts mostly due to the lead times of some of the components. The fabricators and manufacturers are not keeping lights in stock as much as before. There's also additional time for installation to implement the lighting controls and to do the commissioning in the field. So often our construction schedules are impacted by 1 or 2 or sometimes several weeks depending on the size of the project, which is a challenge for us.
Yeah. I see. So, we've been dealing with this for 6 months as an industry. Does anybody have any war stories that they've experienced so far that they want to share?
Definitely one of the biggest hurdles that we are coming across is the ability to get the products from the manufacturers. I believe they underestimated the need for this and the scope of this, so we are seeing lots of back orders. We're also running into compatibility issues from controls to lighting manufacturers and the LED drivers. So we're working out those details as well.
On the design side, some of the things that we're seeing is just with these added layers of controls that need to be in there, we're not seeing the right people talk to each other up front. And so it may not be understood up front that these extra layers of controls need to be added. And so they may have the wrong person doing this. We may not have a specific lighting designer actually in there designing the space ahead of time. On the commissioning side, this is the first time that commissioning requirements have been put into Title 24. And there's still some gray areas in there. We're still learning through that. Our commissioning team recently just received clarification from the California Energy Commission regarding some of the commissioning requirements for data rooms and data centers within some of our office build-outs. And we're still learning through bits and pieces of the code what they really mean, what's actually going to be enforced. And sometimes we just have to call the building department themselves and say, hey, how are you going to enforce this bit of code? This is what it says. This is how we are reading it. but is that what you are going to enforce? Because we only want to design this once, we only want to build it once, and we only want to commission it once.
Great. So, in my line of work, I'm representing tenants and landlords for their build-outs. How can I prepare them for future projects?
Well, we start the discussions early during the early block planning or space planning schematic design process, where we need to bring up schedule impacts for Title 24 requirements, as well as lead times for lighting components and materials. I find that having that discussion early on prepares the client to make decisions. Also minimizes the impact or surprises of cost and schedule when we start planning the more detailed project.
Having a project pre-engineered, at least electrically, really helps the project along and makes it smooth from the get-go.
Good. Okay, well, I really want to thank you guys, and best of luck on your next project.